Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erica with Memory Box Candle Co. And I make videos all about the journey of starting a candle business. And today's video, I wanted to talk about what I personally believe is the most important part of the candle making process, in my opinion, with my personal candles. So yes, there are tons of different things. We know that candle making is a scientific experiment. We know that there's a lot that goes into it that can create different outcomes depending on the different variations and variants that you change during that candle making process. But what I've learned over the past 3.5 to 4 years of candle making is that the most important part of the candle making process, in my opinion, is temperature control. And that's temperature control in terms of the actual heating up process and what temperature you add the fragrance oil to the wax at. So the most important thing that I pay attention to when I am making candles, or what I taught Chris in the process of him making candles, is I am pretty lenient on a lot of things with the candle making process. So for instance, if you're measuring out fragrance oil and it's a little bit over, so let's say you're trying to measure out 20 grams and you measure out 20.5 grams or 21 grams or whatever, and you're just kind of, blending it in with the wax and it's a little bit over 8%. I really don't mind that at all. There are little tiny things that I just, it doesn't bother me. But the one thing that I am not lenient on and I am very particular on is the quickness when it comes to pouring in that fragrance oil into the wax at a certain temperature to make sure that it binds properly. So during the candle making process for the candles that we make for Memory Box Candle Co., we use digiboils, and this one is actually on behind me. This is for the tart wax, but the soy 10 wax is right over here. And we heat it anywhere from 195 to 200 degrees. And also make sure to heat up the pouring pitcher to make sure that it's not, a lot of hot wax going into a cold pouring pitcher, because that's going to immediately cool down the wax. And again, that to me is the most important part, is to make sure that the wax is hot enough. I like to work really hot with the waxes that I work with, so that it's hot enough so that you're pouring in the fragrance oil at a minimum of 185 degrees Fahrenheit. I typically add in the fragrance oil anywhere between that 185 to 190 with the fragrance oil, and then stir it so that you're blending it all together. And again, the reason behind that is because you want to make sure that the wax is hot enough so that it is blending with the fragrance oil completely, and there's not going to be a lot of areas of the candle or wax where it's not really combining properly. Because in the past, I had issues with both my cold throw and my hot throw, mainly with my cold throw, interestingly enough, and that's because I was not paying attention to that part of the process. So I would heat my wax up to about 180, 185, but by the time that it got into the pouring pitcher and I poured in the fragrance oil, I was pouring in the fragrance oil around maybe 160, 165, which is way too cool for it to actually bind together with the wax. Now, I know that this kind of goes against a lot of theories on if you pour in the fragrance oil at too high of a temperature, it's going to evaporate all the fragrance and it's going to, basically not have a good hot throw. In my personal experience, I haven't experienced that with any of the waxes that I've worked with, and specifically with soy 10. And another misconception is about flash points. So if you want to learn more about flash points, I do have a video above that I will link. But essentially, you don't have to worry about the flash point of a specific fragrance oil. So for instance, if the flash point of a fragrance oil is 165, that does not mean that if you add in that fragrance oil into wax that is hotter than 165 degrees Fahrenheit, that it's going to somehow completely evaporate the wax or whatever it is, that, is kind of a misconception on that end. So you don't have to worry about that, but that is something that I have found out through the years of candle making. And again, I'm pretty chill when I make candles. I remember in my previous candle making videos, I'd get comments like, "You're so calm when you make candles." And it's because I don't really, you know, stress myself out too much with all of the little things. I have my formulas, I have the combination of the jars, the wicks, the wax, and all that I have in there that I already know what I'm doing. But during the actual candle making process, really the only thing I focus on is just heating up the temperature of the wax to a good amount, heat up the pouring pitcher, make sure that it's still hot when I'm pouring in the fragrance oil. And as soon as that's done, I mean, it's just pouring the candles. And I'm even pretty lenient on when it comes to curing the candles. I know that, you know, there's that whole thing of having to wait the 2 weeks to cure candles. Yes, I do agree with that when it comes to the testing process, but I've had people ask me, you know, you're going to sell candles at a market when you made candles 5 days ago. And honestly, I am pretty lenient with that. I know that my candles are going to perform pretty well 5 days after. I know the hot throw is going to be great. The cold throw is going to be great. The burn is going to be pretty good as well on the candles. So I'm not really that, you know, particular about a lot of things with candle making. But the one thing that I find can make or break the difference in the actual candle making process is the temperature of the wax, specifically on when I add the fragrance oil to the wax and how hot it is. But I am curious to hear from you. What do you think is the most important part of your candle making process? And this doesn't have to do with, you know, formulas or wick testing or anything like that, but actually making your candles. What is something that you have found that could make or break the quality of your candles? I would love to hear it down in the comment section below. But with that, I think I'm going to end today's video right here. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave it a big thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at Memory Box Candle Co. And I will see you in my next video.